I have these friends, Dan and Sheila. They're podcast hosts.
Welcome to Profiling Criminal Minds. I'm Dan.
And I'm Dr. Redmond.
And we are back for more episodes of Profiler. That's right, it really happened. We're still watching Profiler. I know, it sounds crazy, but Profiler, I gotta say, I know this is gonna be tipping my hand a little bit, but two fine episodes. I don't think there's anything wrong with these episodes. Not really.
No.
Okay.
I
As a show that's building its, what it is and what it's trying to say and, informing us of who the characters are, I think this is a perfectly fine second step after the first two.
Sure, except that after number 4, tipping my hand a bit, I'm going, nah, I don't really want to watch number 5, but we could have done number 5. But I was just going, no, I don't
I'll stop for today.
It.
I'll stop for today.
Yeah,
that's fine.
That's enough. And then it turned out I could have watched number 5 later on because we didn't
record on Wednesday. But it's
on
fine.
Wednesday like we normally do.
Let's jump right into the first episode. A man is murdered just on the street. Just on the street in Virginia. Just brutally stabbed by a stranger who runs to a liquor store first. But the key part is we see the guy before he goes out to do the murders. This episode is not coy about who the killer is. There's no mystery for the audience. I mean, we don't know his identity, but we see the guy commit the murder. Right? We see his face. We know exactly who's doing the killing in this episode. And we see him, and this is the key part, playing with the I Ching first.
Yes.
Right? I say playing with, obviously, it's more than that. So
he's not playing. He's rolling the dice, so to speak.
Yes. Well, it's throwing
in this
coins.
case. Yes. In this case, it's the I Ching. If you don't know, he's throwing 3 coins.
Yeah. There's other ways to do the I Ching. There are the sticks.
Yep.
Right? But he's the guy who does the throwing coins. And in case you don't know about the I Ching, the idea is, so you throw the coins, is it 6 or 8 times?
1, 2,
I think it's 6, right?
3, 6 times, I think. I'd have to go back and check, but I think 6.
And if they come up the same side, you mark it one way. And if they come up opposite sides, right, you mark it another way. Broken or straight lines if they're both the same face. So 2 heads, 2 tails, straight line, 1 head, 1 tail, broken line.
Yeah.
And based on the pattern, right, of those 6 throws, you check your book and you get a statement. And you ask a question of the I Ching first, and that statement is the I Ching's response to it. This led to one of my favorite scenes in all of fiction, from Man in the High Castle. I don't even remember this scene, but the Japanese diplomat, right, of course, lives his life by the I Ching. And I mean, even the other Japanese guys, because the I Ching is Chinese, they've conquered China though. They're not. A lot of the other Japanese people aren't super down with his obsession with the I Ching, but it doesn't matter. He sees the value in it, and they've conquered China at this point, so they've absorbed China's culture.
Yeah.
And he fully believes in the I Ching, and it leads to the hilarious realization that, he's not living in the real world, because the I Ching can't lie. And so, essentially, he asks if this is really happening or if it's fiction, and the I Ching cannot lie, so he finds out that he's not a real person living in the real world.
Yeah.
And of course, the TV show didn't have the guts to do that.
Yes. Yes, you have to read the books, guys.
The book is fantastic. Again, it's a book based, first off, it's Philip K. Dick, who's just one of the great authors. A man, and it's you often say, how shall I put this? Let's just say amphetamines didn't also only lead to the terrible work of the Beat Poets and Jack Kerouac. It also led to some amazing sci-fi. Okay. But yeah, the premise of Man in the High
And
Castle.
music.
Oh, of course, incredible music.
Yeah.
Right. It wasn't just self-indulgent, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But yes, the entire premise of Man in the High Castle is that in a world where Germany won the war, it would be illegal to write a book where Germany didn't win the war. A fantasy book where Germany didn't win the war. And it's like, and that's just, it's a whole book built around that idea, right? It's like, this is all you have to know for who was on the right side of this, is that here in America, I can write a book about what if Germany won. But if Germany had won the war, I can't write a book about what if America won, and what if England won, and what if Russia won, right?
Yeah.
And the TV show, and I mean, all the stuff about the I Ching, like it's not relevant to that part of the plot.
No.
But it's the stuff that I remember most from the book, is the fascinating stuff about the I Ching that just, I found it so captivating. And the thing I find so funny when I look at it is, when they tried to do a TV show, they're like, well, we just have to make it about like people building a dimension jumping machine. Because, you know, we don't understand how to tell this story. And honestly, you can't turn the story in the book into a TV show because it tacitly acknowledges, openly acknowledges, that it's not actually happening. I would find that fascinating on a TV show.
But how do you explain that to the execs, even if you figured out how to do it?
Yeah. Oh, my God.
No, the TV show, I never got past, maybe I got 1 or 2 episodes into the second season.
It's not great. Yeah.
It's not a good show. It's even given the weird premise.
Yeah.
Right. Which is bad enough.
Mm-hmm.
They made it even more complicated because they couldn't follow the basic premise.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they decided to do something else. And as you say, they created this dimension jumping machine. It's a multiverse, you know.
It's just all about,
they
it all
decided
became about
to use
the multiverse.
The multiverse.
And I'm like, ugh. So sick of multiverses.
Yeah, you know, come on, guys. You know, you can do better than that.
You know,
I mean,
nothing
Sliders
you do matters
did it better,
because
thank you.
Well, Sliders did, and we did love Sliders. I'm not going to pretend I didn't love Sliders, but it's like, come on, guys, you can do better than this. All right, so anyway, that's the I Ching, and we open the episode with a guy reading,
throwing the I Ching and reading it.
And reading it, and then sending an email saying, I have to act.
Yes,
and that's
I have to act, and you have to explain. And you know, and he doesn't, and he just acts. He doesn't get a response.
No, he does. While he's still in his home, while he's still in his house, someone phones and says, "Don't do anything. I'll be right there."
That's it. Yes,
but he does not answer the phone, and he doesn't like pay attention to the message. He gets a message from the I Ching telling him he has to act. And he does act. But we have already established that somebody else knows about this and somebody else is coming to intervene. Right? And that's the key part. Right? So then we see him go kill this guy. Right? Just kill this random guy. And we have no idea why. We have no idea what he's doing. And like, it's a very weird opening. But the key part is someone else already knows about his actions. Right? And I mean, you can say, well, maybe the guy with the act and the guy saying don't do anything, maybe he was thinking about, no, he's not thinking about something else. The show is explicit that like, it's not that someone else is involved in the murders. It's that someone else definitely knows about that he's going to go kill somebody and is telling him to hold off. Yeah. So yes.
Until he gets there.
Until he gets there. And who the hell knows what would have happened if he had gotten there in time. Would he have been able to talk him out of it? Probably not. This guy is quite insane.
No, yes. But given that the I Ching is a moment by moment, like the I Ching will give you one answer now and 30 seconds later could give you a different answer if you throw it again.
Yeah, but you're not, and by the way, that's why the rule is you're not supposed to throw it again.
No, I know.
The whole point is you're supposed to throw it and accept your answer. because it kind of loses its luster, right? That you're communicating with the universe if you realize that if you throw the same question over and over again, you get a different answer. Like, no, the whole point is you take your answer and you act on your answer. Like that's how it works.
I mean, yes, I understand that, but in theory, because part of what the universe does is constantly change.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. So therefore your answer could change 5 minutes later.
Absolutely it could. But
because
again,
we don't know what changes
as a system.
In the universe.
That's true. But it only works as a system of like running your life if you don't question it. It's a lot like every other religion in that way.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
It only works if you don't question it.
Yeah, it only works.
And this
if you
man
just
does
accept the
not.
answer. No,
man.
But as the show makes clear, and I think the show does a good job of this part, it makes it clear that it's like no, like he is schizophrenic, like he is a John Nash style schizophrenic mathematician, and for whatever reason that exists in his past. Who the hell knows what it is? He needs to kill people, and he has found a way to justify it to himself.
Yeah.
He has found a way to offload his moral decision making, and that way is the I Ching. Right? That way is finding a way to blame the universe for his own actions, because spoiler alert, it goes back to the thing we've talked about before, the Ray people, right? That famous story. The short story about the guy who was like having aliens beaming thoughts into his head.
Yes.
Right. And then Amazing Fantasy Magazine or whatever gets dozens of letters saying this is really happening to me. Because it turns out that's what it feels like to be schizophrenic. It feels like an alien is beaming thoughts into your head. And these guys, like some people decide it's aliens. Some people decide it's God. We can talk about, the possibility of, I personally, I don't really cotton to people saying that's what was going on with Joan of Arc, but people say that's what's going on with Joan of Arc.
And
right?
And the thing is, because you cannot determine in any way, shape, or form what the universe that the schizophrenic creates. I mean, you can't. One schizophrenic creates an entirely different universe than the next schizophrenic.
Absolutely.
And all based on their own experience and everything else.
And so this guy, the way this guy he has these urges, and the way he has justified himself is the universe is telling him to act. And so he is just at the mercy of the universe, the way all of these people are at the mercy of the universe.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about this guy, what really is underlying it, that he probably does this often.
Oh, yeah.
And most of the time, it doesn't give him the permission to go and kill. So it's a controlling thing, right? Yeah. As well. This is why he is being protected.
Yeah.
Because we're
if he was killing people all the time, this guy wouldn't be able to hush it up.
No, nobody could protect him.
No. But yeah, he's obviously, we have to assume that, as you say, the I Ching is how he holds off. It's how he resists.
Yes. It's just he has the urges, and the I Ching gives him the answer, and probably more times than not, it no.
Says no, exactly.
Yeah. And therefore, the compulsion, when it does say yes,
he has to do it immediately.
He has to do it now.
Mm-hmm. It logically tracks.
Yeah, I do appreciate that it did logically track, right? I know, and I did. This episode worked.
Yeah. So we find out that 10 or 15 years ago, I don't remember how many, Bailey saw a dead body posed the exact same way.
Yeah.
Right? And he arrested a guy. In fact, 4 bodies posed the exact same way. Right? And so he found and arrested a soldier for killing his girlfriend. And she was the 4th victim. It was this woman was the fourth victim, and his hair and DNA was all over her, fingerprints, hair, trace evidence. Like, he was obviously the killer of her. And so they put the other three on him as well.
Yeah.
And by the way, on one level, it's kind of a hilarious idea. I mean, I say hilarious in quotes, but a hilarious idea that somebody is like, I know what I'll do. I want to kill my girlfriend. So I'll make it look like that serial killers that's going around. But then you get caught and charged with all the serial killer crimes.
Killers.
Like,
Yeah.
It's kind of a funny premise.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, it's yeah, well,
it's literally
just,
the opposite of what you were hoping would happens. You assumed you were going to get away with all your crimes because you made it look like a serial killer, but you just framed yourself for being a serial killer.
Yeah, well, no, this is called just desserts.
Oh, 100%. Yes.
You know, the universe is going, well, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, it's the thing with the sniper killing 6 people, but it really only wants to kill 1.
Yes. And the fun part here is that then, what's nice is his first thought is that he's put an innocent man in jail, right?
Yes.
That's the first thing he's afraid of, and quite reasonably so.
Yeah.
But thankfully, Sam is now there to say, nope, I've looked over these details, and fundamentally, the woman, like his girlfriend, is very different. Right.
Yes.
The body is posed wrong. It's not the thing you would notice. Like, it's not posed wrong in a way that you would immediately notice, but the other 3 are posed exactly the same. And here are differences.
Yeah. So therefore it's not the same guy.
Yeah. No, he was a copycat. And so they're sure that he was a copycat, but he did it. Right. But he did do this one. But here's the problem. Right. And this is where the episode gets into a bit of an issue, right? And it's never addressed by the episode, and I think it's actually a problem in the script writing, which is no one asks the question, well, how did he know to mimic these crimes so well, even though if he didn't get every detail right? No one asks that question. Why did he copycat these crimes? And more importantly, the actual, like, this killer of his girlfriend knows who the real killer is. He knows who the killer is. He knows who's covering up the crimes, but he doesn't try to use that information to bargain his way out of it. And I think that's an oversight in the script. See what I'm saying?
No, that's it. No, that I hadn't thought when you started talking, I'm going, no. But then when I'm thinking, where you're going with it, because he has to know.
There is
that is
no
the
way
explanation, and there's no way that's dealt with. Yeah, he has to know, and he has to know that this man is being protected.
Well, of course. I mean, he literally.
Yeah.
I mean, spoiler alert. Later, he's a military guy, right? And the murders are in Virginia, and it's kind of crazy in this episode that they just go to Fort Leavenworth, and I'm like, and so I've obviously heard of Fort Leavenworth, right?
Yeah.
In fiction, right? I'm familiar with the concept of the place Fort Leavenworth, but I never knew where Fort Leavenworth was. And so I'm watching this episode, I'm like, they're in Virginia. Okay, so they just like drove to Fort Leavenworth. So I looked it up. Do you know where Fort Leavenworth is?
Texas, National,
Kansas.
No, I was good. Kansas was my second.
Okay, I had no idea. Wait a minute. They hopped on a plane to go see this guy, and I mean, okay, you think he's got important information, but then they just hop on a plane again at the end of the episode to gloat. Like, I feel like this might be a waste of the FBI's not infinite resources, guys.
Well, this was the 90s.
It was the 90s. They had more money. You're right.
The FBI had more money in the 90s.
Well, speaking of the show
and
having
planes.
more money. Oh, my God. It's like they're just... They got this whole fake prison, and they got extras everywhere. I'm like, wow, spending money on this show.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, and this is where, I mean, I think it's the first time we're going to rewrite an episode of Profiler, but like... He should have demanded to be let out in exchange for telling them who the killer is.
Yeah.
Right?
But flat out. He should have.
And Bailey should have refused.
Something along those lines. Yeah.
He should have refused to
he says, Yes. Well, that was. There are reasons why I get tired watching this show.
But no, I honestly think that's an
will
oversight.
maybe I'll get no. It's more than an oversight. The problem is if that happens and they have to figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as you say, Bailey has to refuse.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem, is that he refuses and doesn't even try to bargain with the guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I would assume
it never comes up that the guy must know who did it.
Yeah. Otherwise, how could he copycat it?
Exactly.
That's exactly the issue. So he has to have access to documentation in the military. Now,
well, no, I mean, we actually know how he knows. We find out at the end of the episode that the guy who was working to the guy who's protecting the killer, this killer, the copycat, was his driver in the army. Yes. Yeah. And that's how he knew.
Yes. I know what you're saying. It's like, but if he had told them who the killer was, it would have ended the entire show.
Yes, but he doesn't have to tell them who the killer is. He has to, right? He has to demand, and they have to refuse his deal. Like, you have to do a whole thing where his lawyer wants him out if he helps them with the investigation. And you have to make it like, is Bailey's career going to be hurt because he put an innocent man in jail? And he's going to, right? But and Bailey and Sam are going to be sure, no, he really did kill his girlfriend. We can't make this deal. We can find, and then you have to have like, of higher up pressuring them to take the deal to catch this killer or something like that. Right? It's like, and it endangering Bailey's career. Like, that's the plot that this should have followed.
Okay, you're hitting me with this, so I have to think about it.
No, you think it through.
Okay,
absolutely.
I'm thinking. No, but I'm thinking about it. Okay, so at that point, and then he gets pressured to take the deal to let this guy go
because they're worried about further killers. Yeah,
yeah, but the point is at some point it's going to come up against because as we know, the killer, whether he's in jail for 1 or 4, it doesn't matter to him.
No.
He probably has some leeway anyway because he knows. And this guy who's throwing the I Ching, of course, is fully protected. I mean, this is what we find out, right? Yeah. I mean, the whole thing with it's the fingerprint, I think, or whatever. And then they guess it's completely restricted. And then Bailey knows somebody in the military and knows that he knows.
There's a guy in either military intelligence or the CIA. We never actually find out what that guy is involved with.
Well, he's being protected by the military, though.
Oh, yeah. No. The military is... I'm saying we don't actually know the nature of the job that the guy does who Bailey goes to find out what the secret the military is keeping.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we never actually find out what that... I mean, we barely, understand that character at all. Although it's nice that they go and they meet at a pagoda. I thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah, I mean, there are some logical flaws in this episode.
Yeah.
And I guess for me, it's just not well. We'll talk when we get to the end of these 2 episodes about the problems I'm having with it. We discussed it already earlier. The rewrite, they offer, but his higher ups though are going to get permission from whoever is protecting this guy, are going to get pressure. So I'm not sure how you work that there's pressure to do it, and then all of a sudden the pressure stops to take the deal because this guy is not telling anybody anything exactly because he can't tell anybody anything. But you're right about the lawyer. Like, his lawyer should be just saying, okay, we've got this other murder and it's the same thing. So my guy needs to get out of here.
Yeah.
Right. That should have happened for sure. I think that, but they spend way too much time, you see, playing their music and doing their fancy schmancy camera work.
Yeah,
To
the revelation that
okay,
it's the
that's
military
another reason.
involved. Yeah, that's true.
That's another reason
it is
why
elaborate. Yeah,
what I'm saying is that this is another reason why Criminal Minds
does a better job. Yeah,
and none of these.
Other shows did. Yeah,
because
no,
I mean that's exactly it. I could cut. I don't know how many minutes.
8 minutes out of every episode of this with their montages.
With all of the montages.
It's like watching CSI again with all of this ridiculous. Oh my God, I don't need to see them working these machines for 5 minutes every episode. Get back to the story.
Yeah, I want the story. Yeah, I know, but in this case, the montages aren't even it hurts it. So that, you needed that extra. I fully agree. The rewrite. Okay. I mean, we might worry a little bit about the details, but I mean, if you gave us this script, we would be rewriting it and we would cut the montages by as you say, 8 minutes in the whole episode could have been cut and nobody would have been the wiser.
So there's another body next to the Virginia military base where the guy's currently working, and they find fingerprints on that. They have a fingerprint that they run through CODIS off of the eye. Sam notices that all of the eyes were closed, and so she's like, the killer must be closing the eyes, right? And so, because like, what are the odds that they would all end up closed exactly the same way when they were killed in such completely different ways? So it's like, check the eyes for fingerprints, right? And so they got a fingerprint, and they go and see the guy who's in charge of the military base. And they show him pictures of the crime scene, and they ask him if he knows what's going on. And of course, he feigns ignorance, right? Because, that's his job. But he handles the pictures. And so they're able to get his fingerprints, right? They're able to get his fingerprints, and they match the eyelids. And they're like, okay, he's our killer. And Sam's like, no, I don't think he is the killer. I think he's protecting the killer. And he's so involved with the protecting the killer that he was like there at the scene, which I think is quite a jump. But her logic, I think, tracks. Her logic, I think, makes sense in that she believes that, like, this killer is so, like, to be acting like this and to have his life controlled by the I Ching. Oh, and I guess we should have mentioned, he marks what the I Ching result was on the body of each of his victims. Yes. And they didn't recognize what the lines were with the first three victims. Obviously, the I Ching lines weren't on the fourth victim. But they never knew what the lines meant. It's just lucky that this team, recognizes the I Ching.
Yeah, right? One of them does.
And she's like, there's no way you could be this controlled by a delusion and still be like a colonel in the army running a military base. Like, there's just no way. It requires too much detail. And so they come to the conclusion he must be protecting somebody. And that's how they get to, who worked on this project. And one of the four guys who worked on the two projects at the two locations where the murders happened, right? Because there were two missile projects being worked on, one with the new set of murders, one with the old set of murders, and only 4 people worked on both projects. And one of them is a blonde guy and has blonde, and of course the killer has blonde hair. They know from the trace evidence found on the bodies. And in an amazing stroke of luck, the picture of one of the guys getting a service medal actually features him wearing a yin-yang necklace. And she's like, well, that's your guy. And I'm like, yeah, okay. I'm not even going to argue at this point. That's actually a really good guess, Sam. So then they just rush to the guy's house, and the major has gone over. Is he colonel? Doesn't matter what he is. I don't know why I'm harping on that. He goes over to try and explain to the guy that he's got to cool it because the FBI is onto them. And of course, this just triggers the guy to try and kill the colonel. And boom, that's the end of the episode. They save the colonel and then they go back to Leavenworth to gloat over the guy who killed his girlfriend. And comment.
See, we did it without you. So
yeah, we did it without you. And you see what I mean? That should have been the scene where they gloat about the fact that they're not making the deal. They caught him without him, but hey, you and your boss are going to be sharing a cell or something like that. That should have been a scene where they finally refuse the deal, right?
Yeah.
It's a weird oversight that they missed that, I think.
Well, no, they needed to do their montages and their crappy music.
I guess they did. Oh my God. But overall, I mean, it's not a terrible episode by any means. Like, the stuff about the I Ching is nice. It leads to some interesting conversations about the nature of free will and her wondering if trying to see if she can use the I Ching to catch Jack. No.
Come on.
I mean, it's a nice moment, but come on. Of course, that's not going to work. But yeah, it's a nice character moment. It's a cute moment. It is a cute moment. I'm not going to say it's not a cute
I'm not sure that it necessarily fits
her character, but I mean, she's all over the place. They're still figuring out who she is.
Yeah, we don't have her character nailed down at all.
No.
Yet.
I will say, I don't know what's going on with her acting choice. There are some acting choices of her. I mean, I loathe to question someone's acting choices this early in a show, but like, there are some times when she's like reading something and she is trying to make like the fact that she's reading look compelling. And she just the craziest look on her face and head movements while she's just reading. It's such a weird acting choice that, you know. Like
well,
said,
who knows? I mean,
maybe it's something she was told to do.
Yeah, you know, you never know what the director wants from her because, as I said, after we do the second episode, we'll talk about that. But, you know, the director seems to be, you know, well, would have control. I don't know who was sort of the showrunner and the producer.
We're going to have to look into that. Yes.
Yeah. You know, that somehow or another, this show has been set. It definitely is consistent. I'll give it that so far.
Mm-hmm. Oh, totally.
But I mean, ultimately, our angel, her best friend. Yeah. Ultimately, to me, is more compelling than Ali Walker is.
It's an issue.
It's a real issue. I'm assuming I never watched this show, except I watched the odd episode.
Yeah.
Like my sister watched it and stuff, and I just couldn't. It just never grabbed me. And the only thing I can say 3 episodes in is that I would have rather that whatever her name is.
We'll look up her name, now. But the woman playing Angel be the main character.
Yes,
100% agree. She is more effortlessly compelling and like more interesting to watch.
Yes, for
she
sure.
really is.
Yeah.
Like, no question. It's an issue. And we're going to see how the character of Sam like grows and how Ali Walker, you know, continues in the part. But I will agree with you that it's an issue.
Yeah. And we're assuming Angel's going to get killed at some point.
I mean, just
that's being set up. Jack
this
is
a television show. So, I mean, probably, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like his whole thing is to destroy all of Sam's connections to the world and make it so he's the only person in her life. So,
and then the child will be in peril. Like we're making predictions based on 3 episodes.
Yes.
But
that's where we see this going.
Yeah. And the child will be kidnapped at some point.
Oh, there's no chance that her child doesn't get kidnapped by Jack at some point. Like, I don't understand how it's a show if that doesn't happen.
Yes. And of course, because we don't kill children on television.
No, I'm sure her daughter's fine.
Yes. You know,
just see where it goes, but I'm sure her daughter's fine.
You know, maybe we'll be wrong, but this early on, normally this early in the game.
Yeah.
But it's not a U.S. presidential election. So.
All right. I know. Oh my God. Isn't it weird that people are going to be listening to this so long after the election?
And they're all going to know what happened.
They're all going to know what happened. We have no idea. We're recording this
4 days out.
4 days out. Oh my God. All right. So we're not going to harp on it too much. That's why we do Sunday shows. Yeah. But it's crazy. It's crazy right now. I mean, hopefully you guys remember how ridiculously crazy it was.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe we'll do another show.
We might do a Sunday show this weekend. Who knows? But anyway.
Yeah.
The point I was getting at was we get to the second episode and this episode blew my mind because nobody gets killed this week. Except for the murderer. Well, I say murderer. He's not even a murderer. He's an attempted murderer. He doesn't kill anybody. Think about it.
Yeah. Okay, what I need you to do is remind me what the episode was.
It's the episode about it. The episode opens because a regular check of a venue where a senator is going to be giving a speech.
Oh, okay.
Finds
okay,
a sniper's nest. A sniper had essentially built a nest.
Yes.
Right. To hide out so he could be there before not the Secret Service, but like the state people arrived to secure the place. He's like, I'm going to already be here hiding out so they'll miss me and I'll be able to snipe the senator. Right?
Yes.
That is his plan.
Yes, I remember now. Yeah, no, I remember the whole episode.
Okay,
all I
good.
needed to was a clue. Yeah. I'm
I understand. No one's judging you. But just think about it. He doesn't kill anybody. He tries to kill one person and then he tries to kill more people at the end, but he doesn't actually succeed in killing anybody. It's so weird to see one of these episodes where nobody dies except for the killer.
And the senator is so creepy, and the
singer
is so creepy.
Oh my God, she's so creepy. Fun fact about the senator. Do you know who that was?
Well, I do, except that I can't place him.
Well, of course. So I'm watching it, and I'm like, why do I recognize this guy? It's like I'm looking at him. I don't know him.
So you went and looked it up, eh?
But every time he speaks, I'm sure I know who that is, but only when he's speaking. And there's a reason for that.
Okay.
He's Damar from Deep Space Nine, the other Cardassian, the Cardassian general who flips sides in the war with the Klingons. It's Damar! And that's why we recognize his voice and not his face.
Yeah,
because we're used to seeing him in the makeup. It's like whenever we see Gul Dukat in something, you're like, well, I know that voice.
Yeah, I know. Or yes.
Yeah. You know, it's like, boom. So yeah, it's Damar from Deep Space Nine.
Or Jakar,
Oh yeah, same thing with Jakar. Yeah, exact same deal, right? You would never recognize Jakar looking at him because, well, I mean, I kind of would because he was also the one-armed man in The Fugitive.
Well, yes, but
generally you recognize the voice more than you recognize the man's face. Just as a general rule, I completely agree. Okay, so yes, that's why I recognized him, and it was bothering me the whole episode until I looked it up afterwards. So they're looking into it, right? And they note that they mention in passing, and of course this is going to be important later. They mention in passing that a music star, a music celebrity is going to be doing the big event he's got planned for this weekend.
Yeah.
She's going to be singing a song, and they're like, wait a minute, this popular musician is going to be at a Republicans event? That's weird.
A female Kid Rock.
Yeah. Right? And it's like, she's not political. She doesn't have any famous, and you would assume his, right-wing positions would not appeal to her, but yeah, she's going to be singing. They find that a little strange. So they then find
his Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah, exactly. His Marilyn Monroe. Yeah. They then find a note. Well, not a note, a message scrawled onto a tombstone in a cemetery. Right? And they're like, this is weird. It's the same message. It's the same guy. Only you, only me, only you. Right? Yeah. It's the same message. Oh, and we know that, by the way, and in case you're wondering why we know the singer is going to be so important, we check in with the singer, the video, people watching her video of Every Breath You Take over and over again. By the way,
God, the stalker song.
I know, but that is the point of the episode. So it's a good use of the song. But it's just crazy that it's like, I keep talking about TV budgets on this show. They just had the money to just go, yeah, we're going to do our own version of a police
every
song.
breath you take. Yeah.
Of a police. Yeah, we're just gonna spend the money to license an unbelievably famous police song and record our own version of it with video for this episode of television. I'm like, and this is just some television show that aired at like, I can't imagine
10 o'clock at night.
10 o'clock at night on a Saturday show on NBC. Can you imagine any show being that ambitious today?
Well, you couldn't be. Well, you could if you were willing to pay the residual rights,
and that's my point.
And the money and the whole thing.
No show's willing to do that today.
Okay, but given their use of music so far,
yeah,
like and probably continuing, I can't guarantee you that, but I suspect.
Yeah,
I would say that this may be one of the reasons you don't see it on DVD.
Right, the music rights.
The reason why we don't see Wise Guy season 2, the music.
That's specifically
episodes.
why you can't. Yeah,
and that's specifically, and that may be
that
the
might
reason
be factoring
for things.
in. You know what? I hadn't thought about it, but you're right. Okay.
Yeah.
Would you like to hear the best story in the world about that?
Oh, well, okay.
I just found out the most. So I had never watched an episode of the TV show Baywatch before a couple of weeks ago. I'm like, you know what? There was a documentary about Baywatch on Prime or Disney or whatever, and I started watching. Yeah. I'm like, you know what? I've never seen an episode of Baywatch. Turn on an episode of Baywatch. First off, fun fact, Parker Stevenson was in the first season.
Yes.
He was like, I had no idea that Parker Stevenson was the second lead on Baywatch before it became a syndicated show and he didn't want to like take the huge pay cut. So yeah, it was equally a Parker Stevenson and David Hasselhoff show. I had no idea. You did. Yeah. I had no idea. All right.
I don't know why I knew that, except that,
yeah.
but I knew Parker Stevenson well from The Boys.
Well, of course, from the Hardy Boys, and of course, our favorite show of all time,
our favorite
Probe. The show that
was wonderful.
We were obsessed with. That only lasted 7 episodes, but I can tell you the plot of every episode perfectly to this day. Even though,
yes, and it has been ripped off many times.
Oh, so many times. My favorite Sherlock Holmes show ever, Probe. All right. Created by Isaac Asimov, just worth mentioning. But anyway, that's not the point. So I'm watching the show. I'm watching the cable, the streaming version of Baywatch, and I'm hearing these weird songs.
Oh, right? Dear.
No. Here's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
So the first time I noticed this phenomenon was I turned on Booker on streaming. And of course, Booker famously has Hot in the City as its theme song.
Yep.
Yeah. And by the way, fantastic opening credits. Oh my God. One of the best sets of opening credits you'll ever see on a TV show. Go watch the opening credits of Booker. They're on YouTube right now. But of course, the streaming version can't afford that. So they hired someone to record a fake version of that song. And here's the strange thing about watching Baywatch on streaming.
Okay.
Baywatch, being a show from the 90s, when it was when you were just, doing for airing, it was relatively cheap to have popular music on it. Every episode of Baywatch has like 2 to 3 songs in it. And they're popular songs of the 90s. And so you end up in this unbelievably strange situation where, because there's so much money in streaming Baywatch, they can't just not air those episodes. So they commissioned people to write 400 to 500 original songs that sound like the songs that were on those episodes of Baywatch. So someone made a website where you can find out what the original songs were and play 30-second clips of them. And so as I've been watching the show Baywatch, I then go and I listen to the song, and it's like a surprising amount of time. Sometimes I can guess what the original song was. Like when we were watching that episode of Wise Guy, of where the fantasy has of him and his high school friends hanging out. Arguably the worst episode of Wise Guy. There's that 3-minute montage of them running around, and we're like, 100% this was originally scored to The Boys Are Back in Town. Like, there's no chance that isn't what was playing here.
Right.
And Baywatch is the same way. Like, there's times when you're like, okay, I know what song was here. But yeah, there's like 500 original songs made for the streaming version of Baywatch.
Because everybody, and I'm sure it's the number 1 streaming in
I'm sure
Germany.
Oh, not surprising at all. All right. So
This
anyway,
man became just so that people will know this, and you can go
understand
back
that
and watch
reference.
it.
Yeah.
Because David Hasselhoff, well, we knew him mostly from
Knight
Kid.
Rider. Oh,
Knight Rider, what a wonderful show.
great
Okay.
show.
So that's David Hasselhoff. Then he gets Baywatch.
Yeah.
And Pamela Anderson is also on Baywatch.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he gets Baywatch. And then he starts becoming a musician.
Well, he had already been a musician before
but he had
Baywatch
songs,
started.
but he'd never been
Huge.
never been big.
Yeah.
Except in Germany, they adore him.
They adored him in Germany, leading to what he considers to be like the most significant event of his life. And he's not wrong. So, and this is kind of an incredible story. So he was touring in Germany, right?
Mm-hmm.
In 1989, right? And
Yeah.
so he was touring in Germany, and he found out while he was in Germany that it's like his bootleg tapes were getting sent over to East Germany all the time.
Yeah.
Right. And so he's like, so I've got fans in East Germany as well. Can I play East Germany? And they're like, no, you cannot play East Germany. And so he's like, okay, well, what about? And so the promoter and him talk about it, and they have this idea for a publicity stunt where what we're going to do is we'll set up the amps and set up the stage right next to the Berlin Wall, and we'll hoist you up on like on like an apple picker or something like that.
Uh-huh.
And with your guitar and your microphone, and you'll like sing part of the concert with the microphone, with all the speakers pointed at East Germany, like you're doing a free concert for East Germany. Right. Mm-hmm. And so that was the plan. And in an unbelievable cosmic coincidence, the night he planned to do that is the same day, right? The same time.
Yeah.
That completely spontaneously, everyone got together and started tearing down the Berlin Wall. So it's this amazing coincidence that becomes like the iconic defining moment of his life, that he managed to score the tearing down of the Berlin Wall. And he has been a giant, and of course he has been a fixture of Germany ever since. He was already big there, but after that happened, oh my God. He is iconic. He is an iconic.
He could have caused it because he brought all those people to the Berlin Wall and they started tearing it down.
Yeah, but no,
it was not the wall.
Just an amazing coincidence, right?
Yeah.
It was just this amazing coincidence. And it's like, I'm sure in his head, he feels he was partially responsible for the tearing down of the Berlin Wall. All right.
Well,
so that was an incredibly long...
You can tell how much, like, there's a lot to talk about these.
Well, no, I mean,
they're competently written.
Yeah, this episode particularly, because the only big thing this episode has to offer is an aside about how dealing with this stalker is affecting Sam because she's being stalked by the serial killer, right?
Yeah.
What it means to her, why she takes stalking so seriously. And it leads to a great conversation with Angel, reminding us that, oh my God, she's fantastic. Like, what a compelling performer she is.
She gets on this. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting because the most important part of the episode is just a reflection on how big this stalker stuff is for just Sam as a character.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's not a bad episode by any stretch of the imagination. I think it's a good episode, but you're right that there's not a lot there. So they go and they look at the tombstone. And they're like, who the hell is this tombstone? And they look into it, and it's a guy from Florida, right? Who's like a high school football star. And the only thing that was significant in his life was that he was a champion high school football player. And he then opened a car dealership or something. And then he got killed when a drunk driver crossed a lane in front of him, and he got hit by a drunk driver. And it's just a couple of years ago when he was 30, and no one has the slightest idea why the stalker, the stalker would be targeting this guy who's long dead. And then they get a call that the singing star, the musician who is going to be performing at the rally, right? She comes home and her safe room has been opened, and the same messages and dolls have been put up there too.
Yes, we didn't talk about the dolls.
Oh yeah, that the killer has all of these in his lair. Not only does he have in his lair at the what do you call it?
Nest.
The nest. Thank you is the word I was looking for. The sniper's nest. Not only did it have the weird messages about only me, only you, but a bunch of dolls seated around. And she makes an interesting point. They notice that the guy has like size 6 shoes and a really short stride. And so Sam points out that this guy is short. And all of the dolls that he has posed everywhere, the grave, the house, and the sniper's nest, are all sitting. And he's like, okay, so this guy is wants to dominate women, but because he is shorter than most women, he needs to tower over women, but because if he's like 5'5", 5'6", most women aren't going to be much shorter than him, so he only fantasizes about women sitting or lying down. So like that's just an interesting note, like, because it shows that, again, his one fixation, the only thing that matters to him is controlling women. So there you go. It's a good observation. I thought that was a well-written scene.
Yep.
Okay, which leads us to the most important part. They go to the singer, and we find out that the grave was her high school boyfriend, who she hadn't seen in years. It's not like they had kept up, but when she was a sophomore, he was a senior. Sorry, a freshman, he was a senior, and she was obsessed with him, right? And she had talked about it. And he had died. And so they're like, okay, so the stalker must be focusing on her.
Her, and not the senator.
And not the senator. And that's why he was at the thing. And so they offer her protection, and she refuses protection. Like, she refuses to be protected. She refuses to be in a safe house. She's like, I'll be fine on my own. So they send people to watch her. And, of course, people are watching the senator. So they figure out who the killer is. And this is going to be embarrassing. I've gotten so into this, Baywatch conversation that I've forgotten how they figure out who the killer is. It's bad, right? Do they have fingerprints?
It's not bad. Because I can't remember. I just know that they figure out who it is.
They figure out who it is because they go to the store he works at, and he flees, and he manages to get away. Right?
Yeah, he runs away. So.
Oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention, previous episode, yes, Julian McMahon now works at the FBI. I don't know how, he got hired for this job from being an Atlanta detective, but he now works at the FBI. Because
maybe he had already had his
his
application
federal service thing. Who the hell knows?
And Bailey thought he was so great when they were working in Atlanta that
they're putting together a new team. But because he does passively mention that it's like if this goes wrong with exposing something evil the government doing, he can take the hit because he can always they can say it's his fault because he can always just go back to being an Atlanta detective is something he mentioned. So there you go. We officially learned that no, he wasn't in the FBI then, but he is in the FBI now. So there you go. Normally you have to go through a whole process to become an FBI agent, but I guess Bailey has a lot of pull.
Yeah, well, sort of just like Elle got into.
Nope, Elle was an FBI agent.
I know she was, but she got into the special BAU.
Very quickly. Yeah, because it's not like a situation where she's just a support staff kind of person like Garcia. He's carrying a gun and a badge. He is an FBI agent now.
Yeah.
All right, so they go, because they know who the killer is and because they know he's in the wind, they go and they try to lock down both the senator and the celebrity. She has decided to go to a hotel, but the senator has disappeared after he got a phone call from a woman, and they're like, oh my God, he's having an affair with this singer. That's why she's at the show. She the entire episode has been creepily flirting with Bailey. So obviously she has this
older men.
Yeah, she has this obsession with older men. So that's all very well established. They did set it up. They set up everything that happens in the episode. I would say quite well.
Yeah, there's nothing. It's not like there's nothing wrong with the episode. It's just that there's nothing special about the episode.
Well, I will say something that's really so weird. I need to such a weird and interesting choice that I want to just throw a spotlight on it because it is a weirder and more interesting choice. So the senator has snuck away to go see his mistress, the celebrity, like the singer.
Yeah.
And the killer, of course, has been following her.
Yep.
And they've been following her too, so they know where she is. They know she's staying at this hotel to be away from this nice hotel, to be away from her house that the killer has gotten in. And of course, the killer has already gotten into the room and tied up the senator, is gonna, kill him in front of her.
Uh-huh.
And while he's doing it, and this is the part I found so visually compelling in a strange way, the killer has strapped him. He's going to electrocute the senator to death.
Yep.
He has a portable television strapped to his chest that is just playing her video on loop. And it's just he's just walking around with this harness on, constantly playing her video on a loop. It is such a weird visual.
Well, it is.
And I mean, it makes sense for the character because he's obsessed with the fantasy of her. Like, he needs to experience, because the real her is not as good as the fantasy of her. So while he's doing this, he needs the fantasy of her to motivate him. Yeah, even while he's got the real her there, the fantasy of her is more important to him. See what I'm saying?
Oh, no, that tracks. I mean, although what popped into my mind, well, did he kill her boyfriend?
No, he was killed in a car accident. Yeah. A drunk driver, as they explicitly tell us, and there's no mystery about this, that a drunk driver, went across the
median.
Yeah, the median and hit him. So it's like that guy had no involvement in that. It was just, I'm sure he might have killed him had he still been alive, but that's why he went to desecrate the guy's grave, to eliminate the history of any relationship they had. Yeah. Oh, and he also, we forgot to mention, he also beat her therapist nearly to death.
I know. Jeez.
Yeah.
Because, of course, because
is close to anybody close to her.
He'd been a boyfriend.
Yeah.
Sort of. But she was, and she had talked about her therapist as well. So we weren't surprised.
Exactly. Right. It all tracks. And again, it all tracks logically, but I just found it's such a weird and interesting choice to have him have a video screen with her song playing on a loop while he was torturing the senator. Like, it's a more interesting choice than I ever would have expected to see. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because it's not like the episode comments on it. It just puts it there for you.
Yeah. What I'm trying to remember. Yes, I know. I agree with you, but what's coming, all sorts of other things are popping into my mind all the time. And what is that? What is this song about the guy whose girlfriend leaves the small town and goes and becomes a star, and he becomes a taxi driver?
Yeah, she was going to be an actress. I'm going to learn to fly, get so high when I'm stoned. Oh God, what is that song called?
I know.
Well,
and the boyfriend, because it's the ex-boyfriend that she was going to go back home and marry once she got big, and
they coincidentally see each other.
Yeah, they coincidentally, and she's a mess, and he's better off. But it's not Billy Joel.
No, it's not Billy Joel. We can look this up, but because it's fascinating because there's this. It's weird when there's a sequel song.
Yeah, because there's a sequel song.
There's a sequel song where he's doing much better and she's washed up.
Yeah,
yeah. It isn't interesting that there's a sequel, and it famously it's like a 7-minute song, and famously Johnny Carson liked it so much he had him come and play the entire 7-minute song on the Tonight Show one night. So there you go. But yes, I do know the song you're talking about. I'm interested to see how you're going to tie it into this episode.
Okay, but I can't. Okay, boyfriend drives taxi.
Yeah.
I'm still not sort of. No. I'm trying to figure out. It's not what the song is, but Yeah, it's Harry Chapin.
Harry
Taxi.
Chapin. Thank you.
There
Taxi.
it is. Harry
Yeah.
The minute
Yeah.
I saw Harry Chapin, well, how did I not remember that?
Thank you.
Right?
It really bothered me that I wasn't coming up with it either. So thank
No,
you.
but
very much.
I was just thinking, I was thinking about that song as I'm going, yeah, this guy who's,
remains obsessed.
and yes, remains obsessed. This girl who went and made it big, and that's this story, whatever her name is, Lisa, we'll call her Lisa for now.
Yeah.
Singing Every Breath You Take and how she's become famous, like,
And this guy
Marilyn
is
Monroe
still
famous,
obsessed with
and
her.
this guy is still obsessed with her.
Yeah.
Except that in, of course, Harry Chapin, he grows up when he runs into her as she's a washed out singer.
Mm-hmm.
But it is, I don't know why, but it popped into my head and it just is.
Well, both of them are about wistful longing. There you go.
There it is, right?
There you go. There's your connection.
There's my connection, and I actually like the song better than the TV show. But I'm thinking this is almost like turning, with because she's big and everything else, and then you just know this girl is gonna fall.
Oh yeah,
because she's a mess. And you can see her, throwing herself into the senator's arms. Well, there goes his career.
Yep. Because there's a lot you can cover up, but like having been trapped by a stalker and tortured by a stalker in your mistress's bedroom,
hotel room,
and your mistress is a famous singer. Yeah, that one's gonna get out, Senator. You can ask Bailey to be as discreet as you want. There's no way you can keep that one from getting out.
Because this isn't the 60s.
No, this one can't be covered up. Thank you very much.
No.
Oh my God. All right. So yeah,
never mind.
It's not a terrible episode by any means. You're right that we haven't seen anything exceptional out of this show yet, except I would argue the absolute bonkers bit of costuming they do with the killer in the last scene of this episode. I would say that is exceptional. I have not seen... Because that's the thing. It's communicating. It's an unbelievably weird bit of costuming that also communicates a lot about who the character is. So I would argue that single choice of putting this man in a harness is the most interesting thing this show has done yet.
Yeah.
I think that is a defensible position.
Okay. Well, yeah, sure it is. You're not going to get an argument from me. And I was just thinking about that thing that Breen said about how they love it in the props room. Right?
Oh yes, when they get to do something fun.
They must have loved. Yeah.
The props room for this one must have loved seeing that thing. Like, oh my God, a harness with a portable TV on accordion arms that he's constantly looking at while he tortures people. Yes, please. Oh my God, so much fun.
Yeah, no, it was just like, they could have spent more,
Yeah.
Just a second.
But it tells you, it's a costuming choice that tells you a lot about the character.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I think that's a good idea. All right, so let's see. All right, I think that's that. We're gonna be back for more when the stress of the election is over next week. We'll be back for more of this.
Yeah, we'll talk. Well, yes, we'll do our lengthy discussion of what my position, my discussion I've been thinking about because I've been watching Medium.
Oh, yeah.
We'll have that discussion about Medium versus Profiler versus Unsub.
Well, I'm going to have to
Criminal
watch more.
Minds.
I'm going to have to watch more Medium first before we get to that.
Yeah. Well, mind you, it only dawned on me when I was in like season 5 or 6, all of a sudden I'm going, is this just Profiler light? No, and I'll tell you why. Just before we sign off.
Go.
It's what got to me is that in this last episode, it was not in the I Ching episode. It's this episode. She was like, she has these visions.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm going,
It's structured just
So
like an
is she-
episode of. It is structured just
Medium.
like an episode of Medium.
Is she
You're not
just
wrong.
is she just a psychic and
No,
doesn't
she's
know
not
it?
a psychic.
Well, I
No, this
know
isn't
she's not
Millennium.
supposed to be.
This isn't Millennium where she's a
Well,
psychic
yeah, or medium.
or medium. No. She's just supposed to be coming to conclusions based on a very, very
Yeah, but
close
they're setting
reading of
it
the
up as if
evidence.
she's got some kind of a visual whatever.
Component
Now,
to it.
usually
I'm not going to
is
deny that. I'm just saying
after
that's
the
not
fact.
the intention. They're trying
well,
to
yeah,
visually.
well, we know about intentions.
Yes, no, they're trying to, because that's the weird part is. So we had a long
that's where you
conversation
get
about this in the show Millennium, where Frank Black never thought, Lance Henriksen never thought Frank Black was psychic, right?
Yeah.
He thought it was just, he's so trained he knew this thing, but it's like any honest reading of the show can tell you it's a show about a psychic. Like he's obviously, there is stuff he does that he cannot know based on the evidence with which he is presented. That's just a fact about the show. And by comparison here, the intent is clearly like of Sam's character, of Sam Waters, right? The idea is that she is what Lance Henriksen describes Frank Black as. Someone who is just so good at reading people that the result looks like psychic. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, yes. No.
Okay.
I understand that entirely.
All
We
right,
will
good.
have a longer discussion after you've watched more Medium.
Yeah.
And I've watched more Profiler. Because I'm still not sold on Profiler, I'll tell you.
I mean,
I'm watching it, and it's not like I have massive complaints about the writing. I mean, the writing's fine, and as you say, there's all sorts of things. We all know my biggest beef is with the music.
Yeah.
And those stupid montages.
Mm-hmm.
But that take up so much time, and they do.
They do take up a lot of the episode.
And that's like, which show was the exemplar of doing that?
What's that?
Prison Break.
Oh my God, Prison Break. You're totally right.
You could have cut 20 minutes out of Prison
any
Break.
given episode of Prison Break.
It was that bad.
It was
that
terrible.
was the extreme version.
Yeah, of this kind of show.
Of this kind of thing. Wasting time.
Yeah. Oh, so
Wasting time.
Something that I'm going to bring up a bunch, but I just want to think that I just like to point out that who doesn't get enough credit for his perfect American accent? Julian McMahon.
Yeah.
If anyone told you that this man was Australian, I don't even know you'd believe them.
No, but that's like
it's perfect.
The guy on Billions.
Yeah,
Believe for Billions.
Billions does have a really good American accent, but you can hear it sometimes. I don't know that I've ever heard Julian McMahon's Australian poking through. Like how The Mentalist, right? Fantastic American accent. Except every summer he would go back to Australia, spend the summer with his family in Australia, and then he would come back in the first 3 episodes of every season. He kind of has an Australian accent, right?
Well, I'll suspect that if I sent you back to Australia,
I would pick it up quick, 100%.
Well, pick it up, you just flow into
revert.
it because
you're absolutely right.
Yeah, you would
because that's how I originally learned to speak.
Yeah.
I have the weirdest accent in the world because, it's your Ontario accent. It's my Australian growing up accent. It's my father's strange raised by German speakers accent, and first language French accent. I have the most bizarre accent and I don't sound like someone from Ontario. I never have.
Well, people often say, "Are you American?"
Most people think I'm American. To you, right? And to me especially, right? It's very strange. But Julian McMahon has a fantastic American accent.
And never slips. Maybe he doesn't go home in the summer.
Maybe he never goes home at all. Who knows?
Yeah.
But the point is, this man's accent never slips. It's. I'm just saying, the man deserves some respect for doing such a good job playing an American.
Well, given that surprisingly, people say, but it must be easy to do an American accent.
No.
All you have to do is watch British television to
I
know
know.
that this is not true.
Well,
And
by
it
the way,
is
and the guy from
never
Billions, his secret has always been that he tries to do a, and I mean, it works for the character he plays on Billions, because he's like the street billionaire. Just such a
Yes.
ridiculous idea.
Yeah.
But his trick is he always tries to play, a lower class guy. Right.
Yes.
So he has these slurs to the words he does. And that's how he gets away with hiding his
Yeah, but
accent.
just remember that he was also, before Billions, he was in
Homeland, doing the exact same
Homeland
accent.
for the first two
For the
years.
first 2 years, yeah.
And it wasn't exactly the same accent.
It was
but-
pretty close. And before that, he was on Life, doing basically the same accent. He's got one accent that's, I will admit, pretty good. His name is Damian Lewis. I don't know why it took me so long to remember his name. But I'm just saying, Damian Lewis is fine. He's no Julian McMahon when it comes to
No.
American accents.
No, and it was funny. I just saw him on Poirot the other day.
Right? I love
Yeah.
that episode with his real accent.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting whenever you saw someone with real accent. And I watched some Australian movie, some terrible Australian shark movie this summer, and Julian McMahon's in it, but he's still doing his American accent.
Well, they needed someone to do an American accent. I
Well,
guess.
no, and I'm just like, why is Julian McMahon in this? He's legit famous. He's like, wasn't his dad like prime minister or something? Like he's legit famous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of his friends wanted to make this shark movie,
I'm sure that's it. Oh,
and so
my
he was
God.
off for the summer or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah,
I
there
said,
you go.
Sure, I'll
He's
do
like,
it.
I'll do you a favor. Why not? I'll be in
Yeah.
your terrible shark movie.
Yep.
And it is a terrible shark movie. I enjoyed it, but it is real bad. All right, so
Okay.
that's enough about Julian McMahon's accent.
Yeah.
Let's wrap
Let's end
things
it.
up. We will be back next week, obviously, with more Profiler as we work our way through the first season of Profiler. Maybe 2 episodes, maybe 3. It entirely depends on her mood.
My
If she can
mood. Yeah.
Who do you think the
3.
her was I was talking about was?
Yeah, I know.
All right. For now, though, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, if there's any profiling-related fiction you would like us to check out, drop us a line at profilingcriminalminds@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. If you were listening on an app or podcatcher, please rate, review, and subscribe to it. That's how people find out about the show. We're going to be back here, as I said, next week for more Profiler, an interesting look back into the history of 90s genre television. But until then, I'll say that's right. Au revoir.
And have a good week.